How many in this room actually spend $1,000 a year on lottery? Nobody. That's what I suspected. That means there are lots of families out there who spend $2,000 and $3,000 to get the average up to $1,000. And I suspect that these are actually people that do not have money. And they're probably spending a lot more on lottery tickets that they put into their 401k plans. So that would be, if you're thinking about savings, if you actually take people who've been lucky like us to have nice jobs and nice education and have done well, I think for a lot of people in this country, they put a lot more into lottery tickets than they do into retirement savings. And that would be my point about the fact that people have a hard time even when it comes to saving. If you look at that, I mean, the average family now has more than $10,000 in credit card debt, and we know that it actually increases anxiety big time. So people are suffering, not just in terms of their balance sheet, but emotionally as well about the situation. If you think about investing, the issue of fees and the fact that maybe 1 in 10 Americans know how much fees they pay on their investment funds, I think that really highlights the issues that we have helping people make better investment decisions. If you think about housing, that's even more interesting because, first of all, everyone I know buys the most expensive house they can afford. So this is interesting, right? You go to a loan broker, and the first thing he tells you is how much you can borrow, and then you go immediately and buy the most expensive house you can afford. And a few years later, we get people surprised when they can't keep up with the payments. Another interesting fact, if you look at the interest rate people pay on their mortgage, as opposed to what they could pay by refinancing, and that would be across time. I know that today is a bit of a strange period, but across time, at every given point in time, on average, about 3 in 10 Americans can cut their mortgage payments by 30% if they remember to refinance. And if you're thinking that this actually just applies to low-income people who have no idea, no. I had lunch with a very, very, very prominent ERISA attorney, probably the most prominent one in the country. And since I live in LA, you could figure out who is the guy. He's a very good friend. Until 4 years ago, he had no idea he can refinance his mortgage. And this is a guy who runs a big office with dozens of attorneys, and is a very good friend. And I don't think it reflects on him. It reflects on the level of financial literacy out there. If you go to insurance, I've counted, looked at statistics, how many people insure their iPods. That's a multiple of the number of people who have kids and remember to buy life insurance. So insurance is a very difficult issue for people as well. And I can keep going forever, but let me just stop and say that we're also not doing a good job generally managing risks. And my favorite one is, how many people have a bit of cash in their house in case we have, let's say, financial terrorism, and you can't go and get the ATM to work? It sounds crazy, right? But every day we see in the newspaper, a kid went into the FBI computer, another kid went into this and stole 2 million credit cards. So when you think about all the funny risks that there are out there and the fact that we're totally unprepared typically, I think people need help with a lot of things, and I didn't even touch on human capital, how we decide which careers to have. It's a really tough one. I think most people are doing a pretty bad job at that. I typically have in my MBA classes a lot of doctors and lawyers that kind of say, it was obvious we should have never been a doctor and a lawyer, and I don't think they say it after the fact. I think they see how they accidentally followed the herd, and every good Jewish boy, if he got a nice SAT, should be a doctor. If he can't, then it's okay for him to be a lawyer. And if he can't do that, maybe he gets to be a professor. But I think there's a lot of problems with how we manage our human capital. So, to cut a long story short, I think people need a lot of help, and it's great to see the government, the industry, and the academic community teaming up together. Thank you for coming.